Alright everyone, Ilhan Omar is set to be officially rebuked by the House of Representatives tomorrow by her own party. They're like, you know, fuck this basically, because she's making things politically inconvenient for them. In the rise of the election, Hickenlooper just got in, you know, Cuomo might get in if Biden doesn't. The big players are starting to assemble for 2020. Right now, the Democrats are looking forward to an election which they're already plagued by several schisms. They already have problems with appeasing everyone in their coalition. Now Ilhan Omar comes forward and gets branded as a Nazi, as an anti-Semite for saying stuff about AIPAC and the Israeli government. Now first let me point out, AIPAC and the Israeli government are not Jews in a general sense. You can criticize them without saying, well, you know, I dislike those Jewish people over there. I dislike Israelis. No, it has nothing to do with that. 99% of the time people are criticizing Netanyahu in the most specific, personable sense. I do too, because he's got screws loose. AIPAC as a foreign lobby, and the fact that it can't, if as a foreign lobby, it can't possibly be primarily for U.S. interests. It's primarily, explicitly for Israeli interests. Now, this isn't, you know, there's other foreign lobbies that do the same. Like Ilhan Omar doesn't have a problem with a Saudi lobby, probably. Or maybe an Iranian lobby. I'm not sure which main division of Islam does she belong to. But I mean, the only reason she's even saying this is because she's a socialistic zealot. She's a religious Muslim, quite religious, I would say, based on this, we can infer, and has these particular views. And then I see like people on the further right saying, oh, praise Ilhan Omar, you're a boomer if you have a problem with this. Like, no, the problem is that for people who've spent years criticizing Israel from maybe a proper perspective, and saying that there are problems over there are problems with AIPAC and similar lobbies. What this does is it makes us look like we're, you know, apologists for Islam or something, which couldn't be further from the truth. I refuse to stand with Ilhan Omar. Not going to stand with her at all. Even if she's right on AIPAC. I can say that, I don't need her help. If anything, it's a detriment, trust me. If you start to agree with Ilhan Omar and praise her, I think you've lost all strategic common sense that you may have garnered over any past period of time. Then Juan Vargas comes out, though, and this was actually funnier. Juan Vargas says, well, it's unacceptable to criticize or question the relationship between U.S. and Israel. And this is a California Democrat, of all people. This isn't some GOPer from a primarily evangelical district in the Deep South. This is a California tie-dyed, slicked-back sort of urbanite Democrat, far left, saying basically the same thing that fucking, what's his name, that Pat Robertson would say on the issue. Can't wait to see his weird take. Right Wing Watch will probably come out with a story because it'll be off the wall as usual. It was really funny. Yes, it's perfectly acceptable to question that relationship. What, so this one particular nation out of all the others in the world, we can't question that? Are you a religious Christian? Or yourself like an Orthodox Jew? No? Then there's no particular compelling spiritual reason to give that any more credence than any other relationship. That's like saying, well, we can't... And these same neocons and neolibs have been dead set against restructuring our even trade deals with other countries. Even some that aren't allies. They're just sort of yelling trade partners and stuff. Oh my God, Trump can't do this, Trump can't do that. Don't rock the boat too much. I think we should do some boat rocking because we've obviously been off course for quite some time, thankful to those same neocons. Here's the problem. A lot of people in Congress, it's like Ilhan Omar talks about loyalty oaths and stuff. Well, that's really a niche within the GOP evangelical sort of bloc. Here's the thing, though. Here's where the de facto loyalty oath does take place. A lot of people in Congress are from districts where the religious voters have high turnout, and it could go higher, and they want to keep their jobs. So they don't really want to come out and say what they really feel. You know, the Democrats on opposing Israel having a wall and being sort of nativistic, they don't like that, but they don't want to talk about it too much. They support Palestine, but they don't really want to talk about it. They'll mix it, well, you know, I kind of feel for these people, we need to address this. They'll basically do a watered-down version of criticism of Israel. And then in the more evangelical places among the GOP, they're like, I would literally fly over there and fight for Jerusalem myself. You know, some fat 300-pound fucking 70-year-old politician with an M16 would like to go over just a virtue signal. You've got this situation. I think what rankles people increasingly isn't the relationship itself, but the feeling. And I realize that this is just a prevalent feeling. I've noticed it myself. There are some people in Congress that talk so much about needing to keep Israel secure, and yet they won't even vote to fund a border wall here. And it just seems a little bit strange. Here's another thing, though. Another complicating factor. When you talk about dual citizenship, yes, there are Israeli dual citizens in Congress. I oppose the existence of such a thing. However, we do have dual citizens with other countries, too. Remember Ted Cruz and how he had dual citizenship with Canada until a couple of years ago? During the election, he said, oh, yeah, whoops, I forgot I had dual citizenship. Better announce that. You know, that's one up for him, I suppose. Why are people in our Congress holding dual citizenship? They should have sole citizenship in the United States if they're seeking federal office or appointed to a federal position. At the state level, who cares? But anyone in federal office should solely be a citizen of the U.S. If you are a citizen of multiple countries, it delineates explicitly that you are going to have at least some trappings of loyalty to that other country. And I don't really care if they're like, well, you know, I like Israel, you know, if they're Jewish or something, like, well, it's, you know, my motherland, or that's fine. There's not really a problem. But when you get into the point where you're like, well, if things fall apart here, maybe I can go elsewhere. It's like Ted Cruz fleeing back to Ottawa or wherever he was from during a nuclear war or something. No, it troubles me that there are dual citizens in Congress, regardless of where they're from. You think I would want dual citizens from, you know, even like the UK or France or something? No, they shouldn't be serving in Congress. It's a crazy idea. In most countries, I believe you can only be a sole citizen in order to hold more or less any office. I think we're one of the few nations in the world, if I remember correctly, that allows people at the top level of government to hold dual citizenship. Why? There's no real reason. It's like, oh, well, travel will be easier or something. Dude, they're in the U.S. Congress, so like they can't fucking take a plane to Jerusalem. Yes, they're gonna get harassed at the border for not being dual citizens. Are you fucking nuts? Yeah, don't even bother answering that question if that's what you believe. Well, Juan Vargas really gets egg on his face. He got ratioed for it. Oh, you can't question this relationship. Yeah, you can. First Amendment, I'll question whatever fucking relationships the U.S. has with any other country I want. And again, this is another example of someone who seems inordinately concerned with the security of what essentially is a military base. Here's the thing. At the pragmatic level, military complex and the politicians, the real reason why we give Israel a bunch of money is really related to its military strategic importance. It's in a central location in this huge area of oil, this hotbed of sectarian violence and the grand chessboard with Russia, and of course a relationship with Iran and Syria and all this stuff. It's basically a springboard in case we have to stage a mass invasion of the entire region. That's really what it is. It's basically the equivalent of China and North Korea. China doesn't like North Korea maybe ideologically, and pays a shit ton of money towards it getting little in return. But it's strategically important because they don't want a hostile nation right on their border. It's run basically by the U.S. They wouldn't want that. Or it'd be like maybe Russia creating its little eastern Ukrainian buffer zone at this point, which is sort of, you know, kind of fallen through, but we'll see what happens. It's similar in nature. So that's what I would say about this. Like, Ilhan Omar is kind of right on AIPAC. The Israeli government's corrupt. You look at Netanyahu getting literally indicted on corruption charges as we fucking speak. But that doesn't mean I'm going to stand with her. And boomer meme aside, it's like, no, I'm not going to stand with some fucking zealot socialist. That's fucking crazy. A lot of people have this weird either-or attitude. Well, you must align with Islam or Judaism. Well, how about I just look at them both as organized religions and say I don't believe in them? The mystic scriptures of both are pretty interesting. You get the dervishes, and then you get like Kabbalah and stuff. That's pretty cool. I've edited works on both. I don't hate, you know, anybody over in the region, but I think we need to leave them alone largely. It's not our struggle. We're over here in North America. What the fuck do we care about the Middle East for? We get enough of our own energy now. We're the world's #1 oil producer now, and the #1 gas producer, and I think the #2 coal producer. We got more nuclear power than everyone. We've got our own uranium. We've got a huge amount of green energy. We got hydro. We've got everything in the world. Why are we so concerned with the Middle East? Are we afraid that Russia's going to go and sphere a couple countries and have more oil than it already has? So that they'll be able to, you know, turn the thermostat up in those dark Siberian winters? I don't really give a shit if they do, to tell the truth. I don't feel threatened by any power in this world. We're doing just fine, but we keep pissing away money on proxy wars and dicking around over there. And by the way, as to foreign aid, because this is a big thing people have brought up. Tim Pool's been talking a lot about this. Well, you know, Israel isn't the top recipient of aid, which is kind of sort of true, but not really. What happens is that our government loans money to Israel and then simply forgives it, like the debt, and that's really how they've been doing it. They do that to get around the fact that they're a non-NPT signee. They're a non-proliferation treaty. In order to get grants from the U.S. government, a nation that has nuclear weapons has to sign the NPT. Israel hasn't. So to get around that, they just loan them the money and then say, oh, well, we're forgiving the loan the next day. That's how they've been giving money to Israel under the table now for decades. I don't support giving aid to Israel, but then again, I don't support giving it to anyone. Our fiscal house isn't in order. We're heavily in debt. There should be a constitutional amendment preventing us from giving a fucking penny to any other nation for any reason until our own budget is solved. We need to start thinking about our people here in the United States. That is what Congress is paid to represent, us. Not Israel, not Saudi Arabia, not Canada, not Mexico, nobody. Nobody else in the world should come before the American people with regards to American governance. They are there to support us, to defend us, and to represent us, and that's basically it. If other people are harmed by it, so be it. If they're helped by it, that's great. It's wonderful to be generous. Generosity, charity starts at home. That's about all. Peace out.